Hey everybody, Sean from Media Assault here, and I'm alive and well. I made it through my surgery. If I seem a little out of breath or hot or otherwise winded, it's because my surgery was on Monday. Today is Saturday, and I'm on some pretty decent painkillers at the moment. And today was my first attempt at venturing out of the apartment since having the surgery. And that was to see Pacific Rim, which I'm going to review for you right now. And please don't think that my review was hindered by the painkillers. I'm fully aware of what's going on and completely coherent. It's just that I am recovering from fairly major surgery. So Pacific Rim is a movie that I was looking forward to and have been looking forward to since I heard about it last summer. By the way, if you hear planes going overhead, there's an air show happening not too far from my house, and the planes are buzzing my apartment complex. This is a film that I was looking forward to ever since I heard about its creation. The fact that Guillermo del Toro was behind it and directing it and had co-wrote it just made me all the more excited for it, because I've liked every one of his movies that I've seen, with the possible exception of Blade 2. I didn't think that one was a great film, but I still enjoyed it. And the fact that this was meant to be sort of a tribute to Godzilla fans and kaiju fans just led me to believe this was going to be the movie that I would be really excited about this summer. I thought that it may not necessarily be a huge box office success, but I thought that for me personally, this would be the movie that I would enjoy seeing over everything else that would come out the summer of 2013. Unfortunately, the reality is that that is not necessarily the case. It is a good movie, it's an enjoyable movie, but it is not the kick-ass spectacle that I really, really wanted it to be. At least my inner 12-year-old wanted it to be. As I said, this was directed by Guillermo del Toro. It was co-written by del Toro and a man named Travis Beacham. Travis Beacham came up with the storyline, and Beacham is responsible for the screenplay for the 2010 remake of Clash of the Titans, among other things. And he may be the reason this movie isn't quite as solid as it could be. I don't know specifically which parts he came up with and whatnot, but when I take somebody like del Toro, who I've known and respected his work, and then we've got somebody like Beacham who's come up with something like Clash of the Titans, which isn't horrible but is fairly mediocre, and you put the two of them together and you get something that's okay but flawed, I'm going to point to the one who's produced the flawed work in the past, but that's just my personal idea. The cast consists of Charlie Hunnam, who is in Sons of Anarchy, which I am not familiar with, I do not watch. Idris Elba, who is from The Wire, and he was also in Thor. Rinko Kinkuchi, I believe is how you pronounce her name, and she was actually in the movie Babel with Brad Pitt. I think that was in 2006, and I'm not 100% sure which part she played. I think I'm pretty sure which part she played. I'm not going to say, because I don't want to ruin that film for you if you haven't seen it, but she's really good in this. I really liked her. Charlie Day is in it, and Ron Perlman. The plot, real quick, and I like the way the movie handles the pacing and the sort of origin story of what's going on here. They don't dote on it, they don't dwell on it, they don't spend an hour explaining things. It's the first 10 minutes, they set everything up, and then they let it rip. I thought that was fantastic. But what we have here is, in the Pacific Ocean, there is a breach in the floor of the sea, and it's a gateway to another dimension where these giant monsters known as kaiju are coming through at a fairly regular pace. And they're coming through at an increasing pace, and they seem to be targeting the major coastal cities of the Pacific. And to stop them, the nations of the earth have come together, as they seem to do in these apocalyptic movies, and have created the Jaeger program, which is the creation of these gigantic mecha robots which fight the kaiju on their own terms. They're monsters of our own creation, and that sets up these fantastic battles between these giant kaiju and these giant robots. There you go. That's the plot. Then we focus in on how these Jaegers are controlled. They're controlled by two pilots that sit in the head module, and they're linked together by something called a neural link. And basically they can read each other's memories, but it allows them to both accept the load of controlling this robot, because they had experimented with single pilot robots in the past, and it just was too much for one person to handle. So now they've got these dual piloted robots. And of course, with that, we get the introduction to the human characters, and we've got a team of brothers who are fighting in this Jaeger called Gypsy Danger. And of course, something happens, tragic, and the Jaeger program is set to be put into mothballs while these walls are created around the coast of the Pacific. That doesn't seem to be a very good idea, even on paper, to me, but it's proven in the film that it's flawed. So these last remaining Jaegers are the last remaining defense against the kaiju, and there you go. Then the plot kind of fills in the rest of the blanks there. The good parts of this movie are the visuals. Unparalleled, fantastic visuals. The CGI, and I'm not a CGI fan, and you know that if you've watched my channel in the past, the CGI in this movie is, for all intents and purposes, flawless. It's fantastic. Really, again, as not being someone who likes CGI, I can't see any other way this movie could have been made and look as good as it does. It looks fantastic. No problems with the CGI. No problems with the special effects at all. They are stunning. The designs of the kaiju are really, really cool. The monster designs, they're very similar, but different enough so that you can tell them apart. And it's cool that they're all similar, because that just is more realistic than if you had these two, like, multiple totally different designs coming out of the same place. It's sort of like, people. We all have the same basic shape, but we all look different. So that was really cool. I like the kaiju designs. The premise of the film is fantastic. I think this is awesome. It's an original plot. Obviously, this isn't a sequel to something. But the idea of something as simple as this gateway to another dimension where monsters are coming in and invading Earth, and we build these robots to fight them, it's so simple. It's not necessarily original. Of course, Japanese anime have done that in the past, and of course, Godzilla films and the Gamera films and the kaiju films of the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s have all taken this and done it before. This is the first big blockbuster attempt to do it and do it right. It's really good. The premise. And the pacing of the film, at least at the beginning, is fantastic. It doesn't drag its feet. It jumps right into the mix. We get the plot set up at the beginning. We start getting introduced to characters. We start getting introduced to situations. We start getting introduced to individual things. And the movie hits the ground running. Fantastic. There are several times where things come up, and I was thinking to myself, oh, geez, here we go. We're going to have the usual cliched tragedy happen here, or the usual cliched conflict happening here, and it sidestepped it. It was great. I'm like, yeah, all right. This movie is going to kick ass. And then we get to the bad stuff. First and foremost, which is the fact that those cliches do raise their ugly heads in the second act, and it really bogs the film down. We get the inevitable conflict. We get the inevitable, and I'm trying not to give anything away specifically, so I don't want to say what these things are, but we get the inevitable conflict. We get the inevitable conflict with, personalities. We get the inevitable conflict with the past. We get the inevitable, being unable to let go of something, and blah, blah, blah. That stuff all comes to a head in the second act, and then strangely, it all disappears towards the end of the movie just as quickly. And to me, that smells like some focus group came in and said, you don't have enough conflict with events in the past in Reel 3, so I think you should probably change that. The audience has said so because they were expecting it, so blah, blah, blah. Not necessary at all. This movie could have been so much better if it would have just shaken off all of that stuff and just dropped it and kept running at the pace that it started with. That disappointed me. The lead character, his name is Raleigh Beckett, and the movie takes the time to set up backstories, some of them more skeletal than others, but it does take the time to set up little bits of backstories and characters for the humans in the movie, and I gotta give it a tip of the hat for that. At least it tries. But the main character, he is the one that we learn the least about. He's the one we care the least about. And I just thought that was funny because I could have given two shits about Raleigh Beckett in this movie, but yet I cared about his eventual co-pilot. I cared about the Idris Elba character. I cared about the Charlie Day character a little bit. Not much, because he's more comic relief than anything, but I cared about all of them way more than I cared about the guy who gets top billing in the credits. Overall, it may sound like I didn't like the movie, but I did like the movie. I thought, like I said, the premise was fantastic. The special effects are fantastic. The idea is great. The characters, by and large, are pretty cool. It's just that my inner 12-year-old wasn't satisfied the way that I am when I watch a really good Godzilla movie or a really good kaiju film. I really wanted to be. My inner 12-year-old was screaming, "Come on, kick ass, do it." But my inner 45-year-old just kept seeing these flaws that just kept me from totally disengaging my disbelief and just rolling with it like I can do, like I said, with those really classic Godzilla movies. Yes, I know this is a movie about giant monsters fighting giant robots, and why am I worried about cliches? For crying out loud, this is a movie that's so over-the-top bombastic that I shouldn't care about anything. But I really wanted to love this movie from beginning to end. I wanted to be able to say, you know what, you want to see a kick-ass movie? Watch Pacific Rim. It is a good movie, and it is a highly recommended movie, and I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. But I can't, in all honesty, sit down and say this is the best movie I've seen this summer. It's not the best movie I've seen this year. It's not the best movie I've seen this month. And it's only the beginning of July. It's an adequate, entertaining movie that for a matinee price is well worth it. Don't necessarily wait until it's on home video. Go for a matinee showing on a Saturday like I did and get your money's worth. It is really entertaining. Do not pay full price for it unless, unless the 3D would really add something to it. I did see it in 2D. But I'm a little bit disappointed, but not disappointed to the fact where I would never watch it again. I really do want to see it again. I want to take in more of the atmosphere and more of the world in it. But unfortunately, I just can't recommend it as highly as I thought it would. So a 7.5 out of 10 for Pacific Rim. And as always, feel free to rate, comment, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe. I want to thank everybody who sent me well wishes on Facebook and through YouTube about my surgery and my continuing recovery from said surgery. I just really appreciate the outpouring of support for that. I want to say again, thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. And hopefully I will continue to recover and you'll see me in a new video very soon. Thanks for watching, everybody, and take it easy.